Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. Today's video is a clip out of a mentorship session with Aaron Bartiling. Aaron is a very talented and hardworking comic book cover artist. He joined exactly 1 year ago, and since then we have created many different comic book covers together. Maybe you have or have not considered a career as a comic book artist, but either way, this clip gives you maybe an idea what thoughts and processes goes into making a comic book cover. So please enjoy this video. First of all, my first impression, it looks really nice already, I want to say. It makes me also happy because it feels like you got better with the general approach of your covers, since it feels like there is a proper line work construction below. Feedback or question or suggestion actually would be, since your audience is more reading left to right, is maybe considering to flip the whole image. Okay. It's definitely important to consider what is our audience. Does the audience reads right to left or left to right? So what is always a good test? Just to see if composition is working. Drawing over the composition once and just drawing in the elements again. What sometimes helps with elements is kind of like thinking about the bounding box, and we have spoken about that before, I think. If you give an element a bounding box, it is a little bit like giving it visual constraints, especially when we have a lot of elements which need to work together. Always makes it interesting, and that's, for example, something I now see, since I just put this here and put this here, that there's a potential opening here, right? And we have two options. We either place another element here, or we try to keep this like a negative space with not too many things going on. Questioning the position of my main element, since this is my main element here. And always hierarchy, right? What is important? What is the first read? What is the second read? What is the fifth read? Depending on how many elements you have. Since this guy is the main read and we don't have too many other reads in here, I would suggest maybe making him bigger. I'm just doing the quickie mode here, like this. Because always, especially when we do comic book covers or when we do any type of illustration where we have one main subject, the readability from far away is very, very important. It's like creating a thumbnail for a post or creating a thumbnail for a YouTube video. And this is also how I learned a little bit more about thumbnails and readability. Because, for example, when someone watches a YouTube video, they go on YouTube and they see actually only a little thumbnail of the video. When we see a comic book cover, we have to imagine someone goes in a store, potentially, and sees the magazine lying around. So how does it stand out? Especially when you ever went to a comic book store and you have tons of magazines, which are all really crazy looking. How does it stand out? I would try not to shy away from making certain elements much, much bigger, and always kind of like think in the bigger scale of placing these elements. You see the difference? Since you don't have a third element here, technically not necessary. But nevertheless, I'm not so deep into the story of the comic. Part of the story element, or maybe a important story element, could be on the rock. Maybe an engraving, maybe a saying, maybe a phrase, maybe he was bored on his asteroid and kind of like playing tic-tac-toe. Adding certain story elements, we still have the potential here to add elements. Maybe just a tiny bit scale the earth down, so it creates a better flow through the image. No tangents. Then also make sure that the rendering of the earth is really good. You can have some lost edges. Don't overdo the rim light. I know that rim light is your number one nemesis, and that's okay. I still love you, but we still have to make sure that we don't overdo it.
That's why I try to go on his face. I try to make it pretty thin.
Yeah, you know what? And that's funny that you said that, because I thought on the face, technically, you could have it a bit stronger because he's the main element again. Also, he's very close to the light source. And also, since we are in space where we technically don't have so much light, if there's any light source, it's going to be technically a bit brighter than we are used to it. But overall, I really like the direction. Also, kind of like the color scheme and everything works already very well together. But I think definitely the best move you did was making a strong line work below, because I can see how beneficial it is for your process. And I mean, we talked about this many, many times. I can see kind of like the work that you put in over the month, that this getting better and better and better. The potential here is, especially for the negative shape, is really good. He has a very expressive pose. These are all important parts of the illustration. This is important, but When I say it's important, it means that these shapes need to be nice. And we spoke about this also many times, which means we want either a C straight or S curved. Of course, you need wrinkles, keeping in the back of your head, okay, I want to go for clarification in shape. I want to have a straight line or C curve line or S curve line. So when you decide to make something straight, I always want you to keep in mind that it's a decision of yours to make something more expressive. So a straight line, usually we don't have so often in nature, right? And straight lines are often caused by man-made things. But nevertheless, that's something that we can use as artists. We can use to enforce certain expression or making something more expressive. The shirt, for example, in space, technically can float because we're in space, right? It doesn't have to be attached to gravity because we're in space. Why not making, or at least trying to make something very straight in here? Let's check changes. That's a specific mask that has these things in the back here. Yeah, it reads like he would have like straps here, and these straps would be kind of like straight. Shape-wise, it's like standing out a lot. So because I know if I would take this out, it would read much more different than this, right? So it creates certain attention, like making a active side of a shape, but then it should be intentional, not random. I would say if it's too tricky, make it simple. Make it as simple as possible. If we can't communicate something, then we also don't want to confuse anyone, right? So rather than stepping back and make it more simple, it's just a better choice in general. You could kind of like think if he would maybe have some badges on his pants, like a logo or like a, from the 90s hip hop culture or something. Like you have here, but on the pants. That could be cool. Yeah. Be careful with the values of this here. They look very bright. Yeah. The choice of white t-shirt and value separation, and I'm very happy to see all that because I know how often we spoke about these things, and it makes me very happy the progression that you made. Okay? So I'm really looking forward you to finish this cover. And here is the final comic book cover. If you see it in the store somewhere, make sure to support Aaron and get the comic book. Besides that, I hope this session was interesting for you and you could learn something. If you want to see more mentorship clips, make sure to check out my mentorship playlist here. And if you already know that you technically need help, make sure to check out my website. You find the link below the video. Follow for more and see you in the next video. Take care. Bye-bye.